Hello, welcome to another UTS Startups Confessions. Okay, we have good weeks and bad weeks in the crowd woo. That was somewhere in the middle, but it's about to get a lot better because I have beside me someone who is probably at the upper tier, the absolute top tier of people that I respect in the startup ecosystem in Australia. You've worked your backside off over how many years now?
By startup years, about 97, but I'm only 35, so you worked it out. No, about 10 years now. Yeah.
Okay, but on the founding team of Stone & Chalk, please welcome Chris Kirk.
Awesome, thanks. This feels a bit like a game show, I've got to say, and I like it a lot, so bring it on. Yeah, I hope we can get some heckling later.
Well, I've got my quiz questions here. To start with, what is Stone & Chalk?
And great to be here, everyone. Who here has heard of Stone & Chalk out of interest? About half the room, 3/4 of the room, fantastic. Stone & Chalk is Australia's largest innovation community. We actually run startup and scale-up hubs around Australia. In Sydney here, we run the Sydney Startup Hub program, and also over at Tech Central, we run a hub dedicated for scale-ups. And every day, I think there's probably now over 2,000 entrepreneurs coming into our communities and engaging in our programs, which I'm incredibly proud of. And ultimately, we're a non-for-profit that exists to build industries that we really think are critical for Australia's future. So we're doing everything from, I was telling Murray, helping startups launch rockets with NASA now, to helping companies right around Australia that ultimately are building jobs that we're really excited and care about a lot. So yeah, that's who we are.
God. And that's the thing, like for people that don't know, it is the largest organisation supporting startups in Australia in terms of kind of P&L and I think the number of people that you contact and the impact you have on those people.
Yeah, and I mean it's come a long way. I mean we first opened Stone & Chalk with not much of an idea, to be honest, as to what we were doing in a little building that some of you might have even been into down at 50 Bridge Street at Circular Quay. And we had at the time, a building that was going to get torn down in 2 years, and we managed to sell the vision to the landlord to say, hey, instead of this sitting empty, why don't we try something different? And what first became probably 80 or so entrepreneurs in 2015 is now, like I said, over 2,000. We run 5 premises around Australia. Where I'm based down in South Australia, we run a whole innovation precinct that will eventually have 6,000 people there. It's about 1,500 people at the moment. And they're really, if you haven't engaged in these precincts, definitely go and check it out, because the energy you feel just being around some of Australia's smartest people and most ambitious people is just incredible. So really, really proud that I guess that's been the journey for Stone & Chalk.
I want to go back because the end part is interesting, but the start is interesting as well.
Yeah.
If you had to look at that, what were the kind of ingredients in the Stone & Chalk recipe that allowed it to get to where it is today? What helped start it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, so I was working a pretty dry corporate job, and I always knew I was kind of trying to scratch the entrepreneurial itch. Like I was telling Murray, like my first kind of almost kind of taste of the startup world was going to events at fish burners, and I think I was like the world's worst student in a program that was teaching you how to code at one point in the fish burners basement, and just watching other people present what they'd worked on over 6 months and go, geez, I'm not cut out for this. But I really clearly knew that I guess my energy was, and I guess I showed up best when I was around just ambitious people trying to solve really hard problems. And I was really lucky at the time that there was quite a grassroots movement in Sydney looking at, well, how do we support entrepreneurs better? And like, what is the opportunity for Sydney to do something differently? And there was a kind of, probably a realization that there wasn't enough to support companies, particularly in areas that Sydney was really strong in, like financial services. And so at the time, probably about 8 or 9 people got together and said, okay, well, what could we do differently? And there wasn't a great hypothesis as to what became Stone & Chalk, but what there was a really good kind of groundswell, both of, at the time, financial services tech companies really like starting to become a thing. People were pretty sick of the old banking system. there'd been the global financial crisis, for anyone that remembers that, where a lot of great people working in banking who were high paid and really skilled didn't have jobs anymore. And globally, Sydney and particularly Australia were getting left a little bit behind. So there was this kind of groundswell of people, and I was lucky to kind of observe and be part of that at the periphery, but never really had an idea as to what Stone and Chalk could become. But very quickly as we got together, you know, we had investors, we had entrepreneurs, we had some of the folks that worked in, like CEOs of some of the largest banks, and said, okay, well, if we were going to think about how to support entrepreneurs better, what would we do? And the idea became Stone and Chalk, and you know, Stone and Chalk's name is really from this concept of some things are set in stone, like you know the rules, the regulations, the trust, and then the rest, which is really like the DNA of the entrepreneur, is written in chalk. So that's where our name came from. You know, we literally did the 99 Designs logo thing, you know, pay the $100 and, you know, went with the one that had the black circle because that was the extent of my kind of skills for like overlaying that onto our branding material, etc. So it's very scrappy. And, you know, our belief was that if we could curate the things that entrepreneurs need to succeed in a way that is completely aligned to helping great founders do great things, we would be successful. And we knew from day one that we had something really powerful, because not only was the timing right in the market, but also we were really smart about creating a culture where it was almost impossible for people not to want to be involved. And that is really, to be frank, you know, put us in such good stead over the last, you know, now 8 years, because what we've helped create around Australia, I believe, is a culture of paying it forward in the startup community, and also platforms that scale for entrepreneurs. And we can talk a bit about like some of those things and what does it look like being a startup versus a scale up, etc. But yeah, you know, those were probably some of the ingredients that we, you know, whether we stumbled on or we, you know, made decisions around, but have set us up really well in the early days.
Well, tell me more about that, because for everyone watching that's running an early stage company that's scaling, or might call yourself a scale up already, what do I get at Stone and Chalk that I don't get in a little office by myself?
Who here is running a company out of interest? Anyone? Who here wants to run a company at some point? Should be all of you. If not,
get out.
Know, we'll work on that statistic. We're about half the room, which is awesome. I mean, if you think about, for those of you that are founders, you'll know this intimately. For those of you that want to work in a startup, you know, you'll learn really quickly. It's a really hard journey. It's a really long road. It can be really lonely. It's sometimes hard to find people that share your craziness and your passion. And you know what Stone and Chalk has really tried to do is bring like-minded people together who are on their own journeys but are actually on the same journey, and rally people around something that's bigger than them. And so if I look at practically what does that look like, well, you know, even though we now support probably in New South Wales, let's say 1,200 entrepreneurs, maybe 300-400 startups or scale-ups every day, and their propositions are so different. You would look at them and go, well, you know, where are the complementarities here? So often, you know, the company needs to raise capital, they need to get access to customers, they need to build a culture and hire great people, you know, they need to expand into international markets. And so many of these things are kind of common across companies. And what we've really been able to do, you know, with a lot of work over time, is bring scale to some of these opportunities. So, you know, for example, down in Adelaide, you know, if you were trying to sell to a local corporate, there'd probably be about 2 you could pick from, right? But it's actually a great place to grow a business. You know, lifestyle's fantastic, it's cheap, there's lots of smart talent. And so the models like Stone and Chalk allow you as an entrepreneur to find your people, but also to navigate to the stuff you really need to succeed. And I guess over time, you know, if anything, COVID in the last couple of years have really proven that, you know, anyone that thought you needed to be in a big city or, you know, somewhere like Sydney necessarily to have all the ingredients, actually, you know, all of the world's most interesting problems are global ones. And so really that's our hypothesis really brings scale and heart to the founder's journey.
Well, tell me a bit more about that part. So the pandemic part of the last couple of years, it's hard to imagine a business that will be more effective than one that has giant leases. Like Stone and Chalk, how did you survive, and how does that change what you do now?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I feel like in many respects I've almost kind of just like blanked or repressed that chapter of history because I don't know about a lot of you, but that was a tough one. And it wasn't just tough from our business, but I mean, it was tough across all the businesses that we're supporting. And so, you know, it was a really like quite a like emotional load to carry for a lot of founders who had to pivot their businesses really quickly. So we had, going into the pandemic, we had a really large, fantastic, vibrant community in Melbourne that was probably impacted the most. We had 2 hubs here in Sydney and 1 in South Australia. And, you know, really the magic of a place like Stone and Chalk is the kind of almost unorchestrated collision of people and a culture of people just genuinely wanting to support each other. And, you know, the kind of analogy we use is, you know, you're probably not going to raise money at your coffee machine at home, but lots of people do at ours in Stone and Chalk, right? And so going, gee, okay, well, not only how do we continue to support all the companies that are part of our programs and pay really expensive leases, but keep the magic and the heart and the I guess the outcomes from a lot of what probably in the early years was a bit uncoordinated. And I was telling Murray, you know, we were probably, if you think about the role of technology in the early years of Stone and Chalk, we were almost the antithesis of that. We were helping incredible tech entrepreneurs, but in a really kind of lo-fi way, just bringing great people together around curated experiences. And so we had to really almost flip that on a head and go, gee, okay, well, how do you help someone raise capital when they can't leave their bedroom? And so that has been, you know, a tough journey. But, you know, what are we now from the pandemic? Feels like 15 years, probably like 3 years or something. And I think for us it's been really positive because we've had to crystallise, okay, well, what do we do best? And how do we help design more kind of hybrid, scalable experiences so it doesn't matter where you are, you can still tap into these communities. And a big part of that too for us was actually thinking, okay, well, you know, how do we support entrepreneurs regardless of where they are and think about almost a bit of a hub and spoke model. So, you know, you could be coming into this amazing facility here, UTS Startups, or you could be anywhere in New South Wales, and you should be able to have a relatively comparable experience. So that's kind of from a design principle where we were forced down. And, you know, we were lucky, we were large, and we, you know, have really, strategic, I guess, and you know, grateful landlords in the state government, so we were able to kind of negotiate our way through that period. But you know, many of our partners in the ecosystems, you know, didn't have a similar path, unfortunately, and I think people are just recovering now.
Yeah, I'll ask about partners in a second, but like, if anything, the pandemic really showed me how important spaces were, and pre-pandemic, I would look at a campus and go, why do we have, you know, this kind of a presence? Everyone can just learn what they do online, and then you see a massive shift towards a lot of online learning, a lot of online engagement, and then figure out all the bits that are missing from that, all the random conversations, the trust that you can have for someone. Like, humans want to deal with humans, and you can have Discord channels and Zoom chats and everything else, and we do, but it doesn't replace getting people in a room and actually talking to each other.
And I'm sure, you know, all of you here today have experienced that, right? And my experience, or our experience, is that the harder the things are that you're trying to solve, the more important the human piece is. And so almost without exception, the entrepreneurs, you take the company I was talking about just before that's just been awarded a contract to develop a launch station out in the Northern Territory and then launch rockets with NASA. I can tell you right now, they're all in the office every day working on some bloody complicated problems, because that's the only way that the magic happens. And so, yeah, for us, how people use space has definitely changed, and we have moved more to, you know, like everyone, you know, flexible models, etc., but really focus more on, okay, great, how do we program curated connections and think really deliberately about the ways in which we bring people together. And, you know, the positive has been we've actually been able to be really creative about how we do this. I mean, in Adelaide, you know, a whole heap of our events are at wineries now, and I'm really happy about that outcome. So
Nice.
it's I think, you know, it's just, you know, that's the entrepreneurial way. You can look at it as a kind of challenge, or you can look at it as an opportunity. And for us, it's meant more people in the community. It's meant being able to support more companies within our physical spaces, and it's meant we can be creative about ultimately how we support people that are on a really long and hard road.
Okay. And I know you're managing things across Australia, and that sounds like fun. I mean, a lot of plane trips and dealing with things that are far away, but just behind us here, the Tech Central precinct.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, and for people that aren't aware of it, and what kind of Stone & Chalk's part in Tech Central becoming a thing has been.
Yeah, I mean, this has been such a kind of journey for us because, when we started, we were really thinking about how do you help companies quickly scale, particularly into global markets. And, we were finding that, a company could start at Stone & Chalk with one person, and then within a year be 20, 30, 50 people, have raised sometimes $100 million, still need an incredible amount of support and not at all really particularly know what they're doing. They've just got different challenges, but they've really kind of outgrown the fundamental kind of Stone & Chalk model. And I know everyone kind of experiences this in our kind of startup ecosystem world. And so we started to think about, okay, well, how do we meaningfully support scale-ups, and how do we support companies that are in this hyper-growth period where they've got to build their teams really quickly, they've got to enter international markets, they've got to get customers, and often they've raised capital, which has got a lot of commitments around growth as well. And so the idea was that we would launch as our really first in Australia pilot, and I'm so proud that we've been able to do it in partnership with the New South Wales government at Tech Central, which is specifically designed to support companies as they reach their scale-up phase. So really the idea is, you might start somewhere like UTS and graduate into something like the Sydney Startup Hub, and then as the companies get bigger, or if potentially you're looking at working for a scale-up in New South Wales, you'll land into Tech Central. If you haven't been over there, check it out. It's incredible. We've got about 500 or so entrepreneurs that come in and base themselves from the Scale-Up Hub every day across a whole range of different industries. And it is really Australia's beacon right now for how to support entrepreneurs as they hit that phase of their growth. And it's so powerful for Sydney because it puts Sydney on the map. Like when a global scale-up is looking at, hey, where do we go in Asia Pacific? They're typically then going to look at Australia, and there was never anything like the Scale-Up Hub to say, yeah, that's obvious, let's land and grow from there. So for particularly young people looking at jobs in scale-ups, it's such an asset for New South Wales, and so good to have just behind us as well. It feels like the whole fabric of this part of the city has really changed.
It's a construction site in some ways at the moment, but imagine when Atlassian is there and the Nexus buildings are there and the Overstation development is there, the people have been working so hard to bring together, suddenly that...
It feels like all of Sydney at the moment, as an outsider coming back, I'm like, this whole city is now a construction zone, but but it's an exciting construction zone. Yeah.
There's a couple of questions to finish up. I think I haven't seen an organisation partner better than Stone & Chalk has. In right from the very start, the founding partners, and then how partners were built and how you deal with partners today. For anyone in large companies out there that might be watching, describe those kind of interactions and how you do it so well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the first thing is it's a core part of our DNA. So we see our business model and our reason for being as one of really being the curated connector of communities. So we from day one have been non-for-profit, owned by members, and our members are actually the entrepreneurs, which I think is really cool. It's kind of like a footy club or a mutual bank. And our focus has been, how do we be the best partner possible across the pieces that we know are critical for a founder to succeed. So a big part of that is customers. If you can get a customer, that'll change your whole trajectory as an entrepreneur. And so we're really focused on, okay, well, how do we make sure that the people that can buy that, a startup's proposition have the capability and are partnering with us so that we can effectively connect them to startups. And a good example is a program we run nationally. It's called Venture Connect. It's for scale-ups all around Australia. And basically the idea is we take the problems of corporates all around Australia. And so if you're a corporate, if you're a bank, you're quite frankly crazy not to be involved in something like that because all of your competition is. So that's a good example, I guess, of our model where when you create a platform, if you do it in the right way, you almost change the mindset from why would I opt into this to can I afford to opt out of this? And that's kind of been our probably subtle business model. And obviously that works if you're really quite aggressively playing a kind of growth and scale kind of strategy as well. So for us, we are in New South Wales, Victoria, and South Australia. Our intention is to be all around Australia, and we really want to be a platform that is supporting entrepreneurs earlier and then kind of helping them scale right through to getting opportunities with established businesses. So that's kind of, it's a story.
You deserve to be that. Like you've earned it over the time period that Stone and Chalk has been building. I saw it on day one. I've seen it today. I've seen a lot of the things in between. I'm going to ask you a kind of feelings question. Brace yourself.
Yeah.
As someone that was on the founding team and now has kind of worked your backside off across all these different locations being set up.
Yeah.
Now in Adelaide, having set that up as well, with a wife that is 36 weeks pregnant. Hello, if you're watching. Thank you very much for allowing him to do this.
Could pop any minute.
Hold on.
Yeah.
How does it feel to now be CEO of Stone and Chalk, that you have played critical parts in enabling to get to this point?
Oh, it's a bit surreal, to be honest. I don't know about the people here, but like honestly, when I started realizing that I wanted to follow a path of entrepreneurship, I found it very intimidating. And part of that was didn't really know any entrepreneurs, and part of it was like these precincts didn't exist. And so even coming to places like Fishburners, I was like, gee, I might get to meet a good entrepreneur today, but it was actually like, I'm kind of exaggerating a bit, but not really. Like it was actually an identity piece that I had to work through, and then to be able to, I guess, go on like a personal growth journey where, once you accept that you don't have any of the answers, but you're willing to, work hard and surround yourself with people that are much smarter than you. It's been incredible for me, and now, I think I'm just at a different phase where I'm having to learn a new set of skills, and the benefit is, when you're part of the founding team of a company, you just end up doing everything from being really good at, making sure the toilets are clean to selling corporate partnerships to, and so, for anyone that's starting now on their journey around entrepreneurship, know that, I guess, that lived experience of just having to be a jack of all trades, as long as you've got a line of sight and you're willing to reinvent yourself every 3-4 months, and you're, not holding on to your Legos, as they say, you're willing to just develop the people behind you, it's the best, most rewarding thing to get through.
Nice. But not cleaning the kitchen sink anymore?
Oh no, still clean. I cleaned the kitchen sink this morning. Like, far out. Entrepreneurs have not, if someone can invent something to help with dishes in a startup hub, let me know, because you'll have a very valuable business. Yeah. Okay,
well, let's talk about that before. Okay, so looking forward, for everyone out there that is running a scale-up of some kind and wants to be in vibrant communities in any of those locations that they will be supported in, I can't think of anything better than Stone and Chalk today. But what can they look forward to from the future of Stone and Chalk?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I mean, one, like there's great entrepreneurs all around Australia. We all know that, but and the reality is, and I experienced this moving to South Australia, like there's a very different level of access to opportunity. And so we are really committed and, kind of midway through a growth phase, which will hopefully see us supporting entrepreneurs all around Australia in hubs like this. So that's fantastic. And then secondly, we've had to really think about like, what does Stone and Chalk do well versus how do we support and work with others to make sure an entrepreneur gets the support they need across the journey, right? And that's been, Murray and I were talking about this before, really interesting because, in the early Stone and Chalk Fishburner days, Fishburners would do slightly earlier and we would support companies a bit later, and it was quite easy to orchestrate and it worked quite well. But now we're really thinking about, I guess, Stone and Chalk as an enabler for critical future industries, and being able to do that, like our proposition is really the scale. So we're looking at, how do we support hydrogen development and just crazy, propositions in the nuclear space, etc., where we'll never be the subject matter expert, but we're really excited, I guess, about being able to help kind of create some of these ecosystems where great entrepreneurs, subject matter experts, etc., can level in. And from us, I'd just say these communities are open, they're accessible. Doesn't matter if you're just like I was, a couple of years ago, thinking about how might I take my first step. Or if you're an entrepreneur looking to scale your business, feel free to jump on the website or socials or reach out, or actually just go to an event at one of these places as well. Because the great thing about the communities is they're live, they're dynamic, they change every day, and it's really hard to know what the next couple of years looks like. But the one thing I do know is the rate at which Australians are moving into these sectors, and the rate at which the entrepreneurial journey as a career path has been kind of normalised and accepted means that things are going to be really good.
Beautiful. What a positive note to end on. And isn't it nice to live in a place where we need places for hydrogen solutions to come together, or space solutions, or whatever else? Who would have thought in Australia?
Yeah.
It's things to look forward to, and I'm looking forward to a lot of it. We're going to go into a private Q&A session now where we get to hear the really juicy bits. So if you're watching at home, sorry, but every Friday at 3:30 at UTS Startups at Central, come on down and you can hear the really juicy bits. But for now, join me in thanking Chris Kirk.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.